Good afternoon from Salisbury Cathedral on this 5th day of January 2022. You're watching the weekly reflection, and I'm Canon Nigel Davies, the Vicar of the Close. In actual fact, you weren't watching this live stream because I was struggling with the YouTube channel, but I'm glad to say, due to my technical assistant, Amy, we're able to go live and you're able to see me. I wonder if you made any New Year's resolutions. Often people make them. Usually they make them on the first or second day in New Year when perhaps they're not feeling as well as they might feel in the future. Often I think you'll find that New Year's resolutions can be wishful thinking. I was told once by my daughter that habits are formed when you do them repeatedly. And I was thinking about returning to running. So she always seemed to think that I could do it if I did it at least 12 times. So I used the first lockdown to start my running. And since then, I have been able to maintain the running. And so I can say, in truth, that actually, if you are able to repeat something enough times, it becomes a habit, and eventually it will become not a New Year resolution, but a full-on resolution. I have to say that there are some other resolutions that I've made that have not really stuck. Now, I'm of an age that can remember there were things called exercise books at school. And I'm also of an age to remember that when you went to school at the start of a new term, depending on which subject you were doing, you got a new book. And those new books were absolutely priceless. Well, they probably weren't that expensive, but to your psyche, they were. They came out and they were put on your desk, and you had the blank place where you could write your name and form number. They smelt wonderfully new, and you would open them up, and there was that wonderful clean page, and you could cast your old dog-eared copy into the bin. But unfortunately, those new books didn't stay like that. And by the end of the year, they ended up looking like the one that you had just discarded. In fact, sometimes it got even worse. You'd start trying to write the best writing you could, and suddenly you'd make a mistake. And if you made a mistake on the first page, how awful it felt. I do remember on one occasion actually tearing out the first page because I'd made that kind of mistake. I think we all like to make new starts, to do something fresh. But at the start of this year, it does seem that we are rather stuck in a repeating loop. It seems to be same old, same old. We haven't escaped from COVID. We haven't turned the page and found that the world is very different. This new year is not brand spanking new, because carried into it are the problems from the past, which got me wondering about, well, how do we solve these problems? Because COVID being one of them, there are many other problems which have been carried over into the new year. Indeed, they're carried over into every new year. Things like feeding the people who are starving, finding homes for the homeless, distributing wealth more equitably, helping address the climate crisis. Well, I came across an article or a news flash that apparently the 5 nuclear powers on the United Nations Security Council have now made a communique which says that they will not use nuclear weapons to target each other, and that they would seek ways of avoiding nuclear war. And they would want to stop the spread of nuclear weapons. I felt myself wondering, do they actually mean that? Or is it just rhetoric? Did it just sound good at the beginning of a year to say this, when we know that there are tensions between the countries in Europe and between the countries with China? Maybe it's the start of a journey for those countries. Maybe it's the start of a real journey to world peace. Climate change, of course, and the climate crisis was addressed last year, and some people feel that the words and the communiques that came out of the conference in Glasgow were hardly sufficient. But you might say that they were a tentative step on the beginning of the road. There are so many problems that we all need at some point to take tentative steps, and the smallest step is the way that a journey begins. Sometimes it's very difficult to feel any sense of hope, and we perhaps do not share Robert Louis Stevenson's view that to travel hopefully is a better thing than to arrive. There are so many things that are wrong in our world that it will be very good to arrive at least at some of them, or the answers to some of them, rather than to travel hopefully or wistfully. Some may find, therefore, that the idea of hope is eluding them. And as I thought about this, I was reminded of a poem which was quoted by George VI. It was written by Minnie Haskins, and its sentiments now are about as timely as they were then. I'm sure there are many people who will know the words I am about to read, but if they are new to you, I think it is an appropriate thing to use, an appropriate set of words to use at the start of a new year. This is what she wrote. And I said to the man who stood at the gate of the year, give me a light that I may tread safely into the unknown. And he replied, go out into the darkness and put your hand into the hand of God. That shall be to you better than light and safer than a known way. So I went forth, and finding the hand of God, trod gladly into the night, and he led me towards the hills and the breaking of the day in the lone east. Lovely words to use at the start of a new year. And may I wish all of you who are watching a very peaceful new year. Bye bye.